Our hog was better than their hogs. A breakout day by an ACU receiver leads to a big win over the Javelinas.
And today the Cats come home to try to clinch a playoff spot against the Cardinals. Don't watch the birdie. Watch the Chris Thomsen Show right now.
The 2011 ACU football regular season concludes today as the Cats welcome in the Cardinals of Incarnate Word. Welcome to the Chris Thomsen Show. I'm Grant Boone with ACU senior Austin Gwynn and the coach Chris Thomsen. Coach, 10 weeks ago, the season began with a thrilling win over Tarleton State. A whole lot of ups, a few downs along the way, but as you welcome in Incarnate Word today, really everything you wanted to accomplish, I have to believe, is sitting right there for you.
Yeah, it is. I mean, if we can get this win today, obviously we've I think, put ourselves in the national playoffs and given ourselves an opportunity to play for a national championship, which is what, you know, when you start out in January, that's your ultimate goal that every team has. So we'll be, you know, if we can get this win, we'll be one of 24 that has a chance to do that.
Yeah. And a 42-34 win last week against Texas A&M-Kingsville. Another fourth quarter rally for the Cardiac Cats, and you were on the field after the game. Telling your guys to keep their heads up, act like they've won this game, because some of them had their heads down, and you traveled 7 hours down there, even more on the way back because of some bus issues. How big was last Saturday's victory for you guys?
It was huge, and that's what I wanted them to understand. Some of the guys didn't, you know, gave up a couple of big plays and were responsible for that, and they were, you know, they were down about that, obviously, and I'm glad they were. I'm glad they were disappointed, but as a whole, some of those guys also stepped up and made some huge plays and got us some stops when we needed them on defense. And offense played well, 21 points in both halves. And, you know, and so just wanted them to understand that as a team that was a great victory. And, you know, for our seniors, that's 3 times in Kingsville. That's hard to do, and great respect for their program. And just wanted them to understand it was a great win.
We'll talk about that game, big 42-34 victory over Kingsville when we return, and we'll look at those highlights as well. You're watching the Chris Thomsen Show. Stay with us. Close call for the Wildcats down in South Texas last week with a look at the highlights of ACU's 42-34 victory over Kingsville at the Pigpen. Here's Austin.
All right, the ACU Wildcats heading south to Kingsville, Texas to take on the Texas A&M-Kingsville Javelinas. It was windy outside, but the run game is not affected by the wind, and Kingsville's wasn't. That is Jonathan Woodson taking their second possession of the game, 87 yards to the house. Jonathan Woodson. Wish I could tell you that was his only touchdown of the game. Unfortunately, that was his first of 4. Kingsville takes a 7-0 lead and immediately onside kicks, looking like the Saints in the Super Bowl. A risky play, but they recover. Wildcat defense, though, would have none of that. As on Kingsville's next possession, Nathan Baggs picks off quarterback Daniel Ramirez. Baggs puts the Wildcats in good field position, and Gale will finish off the drive with a touchdown pass to Daryl Cantu-Harkless. Wildcats tied up 7-7. Here, Aston Whiteside, All-American defensive end, gets his second forced fumble on the game on Kingsville's next drive. Wildcats will recover. Gale leads his team back down the field, and here's Daryl Richardson running it in from 6 yards out. That's the first of Richardson's 2 touchdowns on the night. Wildcats have their first lead of the game at 14-7. But it was the Jonathan Woodson show. Takes that carry 24 yards, makes a couple of nice moves into the end zone. Wildcats 2 touchdowns, Woodson 2 touchdowns. West will answer for the Cats as he gets in the end zone, 21-14 ACU at halftime. Start of the second half, though. Here's Jonathan Woodson. This is 80 yards. He's got an 87, a 24, now an 80. That's the most Kingsville touchdowns in a season over 80 yards. 2, and he had them in the same game. Woodson, 21, Wildcats, 21. Gale, though, quickly back down the field. He finds Taylor Gabriel, and then we'll find Darian Hogg. Hogg makes a nice catch in the corner of the end zone. Wildcats go up 28-21 on the halves. I told you Woodson had 4. Here's the 4th, this time as a receiver. Ramirez finds Woodson. Woodson just makes the Wildcats look silly on this one, makes them look foolish as he takes it 60 yards to the end zone. Woodson, 4 touchdowns. The Wildcats, 4 touchdowns. Goes from bad to worse for the Cats as Gale will get sacked and he fumbles. Javelinos recover it, and on the first play on their next possession, Ramirez finds Shaman Batiste in the corner of the end zone. That's good. 34-28, Texas A&M Kingsville. They get the extra point blocked, though. So Wildcats only down 6. Here's Richardson in for his second touchdown of the game. Wildcats will make their extra point. They're up 1, 35-34. Next ACU possession, Gale finds Taylor Gabriel, who streaks down the middle of the field, 39 yards. They go up 8 after that score, 42-34. Kingsville down to its last chance. Ramirez will bounce that pass into the receiver. He did not catch it. It hit off the field, and the Wildcats will just take the clock down to triple zeros. They escape South Texas with an 8-point victory, 6-2 on the year, 5-1 in the conference.
Thanks, Austin. So ACU by 8 over Kingsville. That's 8 consecutive victories for your team, Coach, over the Javelinas. 5 straight in Kingsville. It was a game that neither team ever led by more than 1 possession, and I guess like most games against Kingsville, it was one that you could never really feel comfortable, right?
Oh no, I mean when Woodson's on the field, there's no comfort level at all for anybody, and they've got some other players as well. But he kept them in the game consistently with big plays, and he's a phenomenal player. He reminded me of Bernard on some of those runs, from a couple of years ago. But in the end, we were able to get a stop, and our offense was able to match and exceed, and then our offense was able to run the clock after we got the stop. Coming off our own goal line, get a couple first downs. That was huge. So. Real proud of our guys for stepping up in those situations and making the plays they had to make.
And Coach, kind of an odd first quarter. You guys forced 3 Kingsville turnovers, yet at the end of one, you guys had 14, and Jonathan Woodson had 14 for the Hogs. How weird was that first quarter to be up 3-0 in the turnover department, yet the game's tied?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was strange. I mean, because typically you get that many turnovers, you're going to thinking you've got an edge, but again, a player like that, he's an extraordinary player, and he made the plays to keep them in it. But whatever you get in a game, the main thing is just you keep playing. You don't worry about what's going on or worry about the score, the turnover ratio. You just keep playing the next play, and if you do that, you got a chance to make some good things happen, and we did.
Coach, we talk about turnovers a lot, and some feel like giveaways, and other times you really say the other team forced it. I thought Aston Whiteside, he's coming down the stretch of what is going to, 10 years from now, be a Hall of Fame career. He's going to be first ballot Hall of Famer in the ACU Sports Hall of Fame. There are giveaways and there are forced turnovers, and he forced a couple.
He clearly just took the ball away. And then Baggs picked. Baggs drops in the right coverage. He recognized what was going on. And
fifth-year senior, first career pick.
Yeah, and I just think those guys, those older players are making plays for us, and that's what's encouraging to me is we got guys that can make plays. And then, the one we fumbled, Mitchell's, I mean, they legitimately took that one away. I mean, that was a game of defense stepping up and making some plays and obviously some great offensive performances as well, but proud of our guys.
You know what we say, they are who we thought they were, the famous Dennis Green line. 29 turnovers for Kingsville coming into that game, 3 more, so 32 giveaways for Kingsville. Amazing.
Yikes. Some of those may have been the difference in the game for sure. One of those big offensive performances you were talking about came from Darian Hogg, making us all sound smart. We mentioned him last week. We talked about how big he needs to be down the stretch, and he came up huge. 9 catches, 156 yards, and a really great touchdown catch late in the game. Talk about his performance on Saturday.
Well, he just gave us a spark that we hadn't had there and from him in a while. And he's been battling some injuries, but I think he just, he got involved early and kind of got a rhythm going, and he really played. We challenged him this week to just play with passion, play with emotion, go take the opportunity that's out there in front of you, and that's what Hogg did. I mean, he stepped up, and as he got in the flow of the game, and sometimes that's hard for a receiver. You don't get enough touches sometimes to get in the flow, and when he got 9 touches, and that gets you going and gets you in a rhythm, and he showed what he can do, and he was a catalyst as well. He kept our guys in it.
If I'm not mistaken, every time he was targeted, he caught the ball. I know he didn't have any drops, and if there was a
I think there may have been one that hit off a hand way up high.
Yeah,
but
very
that was
top.
it.
He went up high for one. That's right. That was not really a catchable ball. So he caught him away from his body. He caught the ones in tight. Great performance by him. Another great offensive performance came from Darrell Richardson. He goes for $170 and 2 scores against Commerce. Last week, 23 rushes, one shy of his career high in terms of number of carries, 109 yards. You guys go for 220 against a Kingsville defense that had been giving up 100. And last year you went 26 carries for 23 total yards. I thought, given the competition, that Daryl's game might have even been better than the 170-yard game, and I'm not positive the way he picked up a couple of blitzes that wasn't his finest game ever in 3 years as a Wildcat.
Yeah, that very well could have been his best overall game. And what I was most proud of with Daryl is we've been challenging him. He loves to get on the perimeter and run outside and catch screens, but we've challenged him to go inside and get those tough yards more, and that's what he did. And you got to give Justin Andrews a lot of credit. He did a great job on the inside blocking, and
with Shakandrick as well.
And Shakandrick had some tough yards, and then our offensive line. I mean, we challenged them. You know, Coach Young challenged them to expand some space in there, move those big guys around, Tiavo and some of those guys. You look at them and you're like, we can't run the ball. You know, but our guys really stepped up, moved some people around, and Daryl really found some space in there and had some tough runs. You've
been down there, I know. That's a great environment to play football in. 5 straight wins down there, 3 for this year's senior class. Great win. 42-34 the final. When we come back, we'll go up to the JMC Network newsroom and see what's happening around the rest of a very busy ACU sports world. This is the Chris Thomsen Show.
Welcome back to the Chris Thomsen Show with a look now at the ACU sports landscape. Here's Taylor Langston and Kristen Goodspeed with the JMC Network Sportscast.
Thanks, Austin. Conference play came to a close last weekend for the ACU volleyball team as the women faced Cameron University on Saturday. The Cats squared off against the Aggies for the 3rd time this season in their opening game in the LSC tournament, which began on Thursday. The number 3 seeded Cats ended conference with a 14-6 record, and after today's final match, the conference champs will be determined.
Moving to cross country, Wildcat Chloe Sissette brought home the gold at the regional championships Saturday in Wichita Falls. Teammate Elise Goldsmith finished 4th, so both ladies look to race in the national tournament for the first time in their careers. Head coach Chris Wood said he's excited for the two and very proud of them. As for the men, 3 ACU runners competed, though none qualified for the next step. Fabian Wessel-Turharn was the top finisher at 26th, however lost his shoe in the race, which hindered his performance. Will Pike and Eric Forrester followed behind in 37th and 57th.
Basketball season is nearing, and the women's team competed in their first exhibition game of the season last weekend in Houston. The women played Houston Baptist in their first matchup and came away with a close 75-67 loss. However, the exhibition game won't count as a loss on the record, and the season will officially kick off on November 17th against Texas A&M International in Laredo. And on the men's side, new head coach Joe Golding and his team welcome East Central Oklahoma University to Moody tonight beginning at 7:30.
Soccer's winning streak ended Sunday to Midwestern State 2-1. However, ACU will host one of the 2 regional tournaments this weekend at the Wildcat soccer pitch. Last year, ACU lost to Midwestern twice in the regular season, but defeated the Mustangs in the conference championship. However, just as Elliott London feared, the 2 teams changed roles this year, with ACU defeating Midwestern 2 times in the regular season, yet falling to them in the conference championship match.
For the JMC Network Sportscast, I'm Taylor Langston.
And I'm Kristen Goodspeed. See you next week.
Thanks, ladies. And one more thing, the Wildcat soccer team does play Sunday at 2 in a second-round NCAA playoff game. That game is here at ACU on the Wildcat soccer pitch. Now, Grant, let's talk football. There's a group of guys that could very well be playing their last game here at Shotwell Stadium. 17 seniors, a class that includes Daryl Richardson, Aston Whiteside, Neil Tivis, Derek Drummond, a newcomer. They've been leaders of this team for years in some cases. What will we remember specifically about this senior class?
It starts with number 2. Starts with Aston Whiteside. Got here in 2007 with his cousin Bernard Scott. And his cousin Shalem Richardson, who was Bernard Darrell's brother, who was here for 1 year and played. Redshirted that first year. You look back and you talk to Coach Thomsen about that just gut-wrenching loss to Chadron State in that epic 76-73 3-overtime loss in the second round of the NCAA playoffs. He's wondered before, if we had Aston Whiteside, if we hadn't redshirted him, do we win that game? Whiteside has been a dominant player since the moment he stepped onto the field. 9 sacks. Very first game was up on the road against a top 5 team in the nation, Northwest Missouri State. Had some huge pressures on the quarterback in that game, a game that ACU won by 17. 31.5 sacks going into today's regular season finale. That's 2.5 sacks away from the all-time ACU record. 130 tackles, 57.5 tackles for losses, 36 quarterback hurries, 7 forced fumbles, including a couple last week. He's even scored 3 times, 2 on fumble recoveries for touchdowns and 1 interception return for a touchdown last year. Aston Whiteside has been one of the most dominant players, not just in ACU history, one of the most disruptive defensive players in the history of the Lone Star Conference.
Definitely a lock for the ACU Sports Hall of Fame in a few years. One other guy, though, we probably should discuss that won't be on the field on Saturday. Tight end Ben Gibbs tore his ACL against Kingsville last week. He's already played his final home game, but he's been an integral part of this Wildcat football team for years. Talk about his career.
Came from Abilene High. His folks are longtime missionaries in Brazil. They're there, been there the last couple of years. They've come back and they've had a chance to watch him play his last couple of games, which has been great. Came to play football at ACU, then went to go play baseball. That didn't work out. Came back in 2009, 57 career catches, 777 career yards, 9 touchdowns. Caught a touchdown at his very first game. That was against Northwest Missouri on that nationally televised game on that Thursday night. Coach Thomsen told me that the moment he stepped onto the field in practice, August of 2009, he was immediately their best route runner. Tore his ACL last week against Kingsville. Already an NFL prospect. A lot of NFL teams have liked him because of his size, his agility. A lot of guys have come back from knee injuries. Let's hope that Ben Gibbs isn't done playing football and that maybe somebody in the NFL gives him a chance. Phenomenal player, even better human being.
And real quick, you mentioned Ben Gibbs could be an NFL guy. We've gotten used to Wildcats going to the NFL. Other than Ben and maybe Aston, you see anybody else getting a look from the senior class from an NFL team?
You know, I think Darrell Richardson is going to get some looks. I mean, you're looking at a guy who's now rushed for better than 2,000 yards. And in limited playing time, he split time with Reggie Brown or last year with Cantu Harkless and Shakandrick West. Darrell Richardson has scored 35 touchdowns now in 3 seasons. He has the NFL-type body. Can he stay healthy? I know for a fact that the NFL scouts like what they've seen. No way to guarantee that anyone's going to make it in the NFL, but Darrell will have a chance.
Definitely a great group of seniors, and they will be missed. When we come back on the Chris Thomsen Show, we'll bring Coach T back up here on set, talk a little bit about this senior class, and talk about the final home regular season game against a 2-7 Incarnate Word team this afternoon. Stick around.
Crazy day in NCAA Division II Super Region 4 last Saturday. 3 2 o'clock games really shifted the playoff landscape. Washburn knocked off number 1 seed in the region, the number 1 ranked team in the region, Pitt State, 43-25. That was at Pittsburgh State's home field. Missouri Western at home beat Northwest Missouri 31-28, and Midwestern State knocked off West Texas A&M 35-21 in a game that was a 1-score game, and WT had the ball late in that game. So congratulations to Coach Bill Maskell and the Mustangs. They are the Lone Star Conference champions. Coach, you, by the time you took the field, you knew what had happened in those 3 games. And again, as we said before, it really, regardless of that outcome, it made things really simple for your team. You knew you had to win.
Yeah, we knew,
and the same for today.
We knew, whatever happened prior to our game, we had to win the game, and same thing today. We're in a must-win situation, and our team knows that, and I think they've had a great week of practice. They've been very focused, and just looking forward to the opportunity to go out and get a chance to get a win and hopefully get in the playoffs.
The regional rankings for this week have Midwestern State number 1. Washburn goes to number 2 after the big win over Pitt State. The Gorillas fall to number 3. Missouri Western with a big win over Northwest goes to number 4. ACU stays number 5, and Northwest Missouri falls to number 6. ACU still, remember, just 1 loss in Super Region 4. That came to Midwestern State, so a win over Incarnate Word should get it done. Coach, let's turn our attention to today's regular season finale, ACU hosting Incarnate Word, and let's begin by talking about the seniors whom Austin and I just discussed in our previous segment. 17 guys who've invested a lot of sweat into this program. When you think about this year's senior class, what distinguishes them to you?
Well, just that, there's a lot of long-term guys in that group, and then there's A couple of guys like Donald Moore, who came in last year, transferred in, and then a couple of guys, Gerard and Drummond, that came in as seniors, and just how they've all meshed this year to provide leadership for our team. I think they've done an outstanding job. You mentioned earlier we've had some really good times in this season. We've had some tough times, and I think their leadership has been consistent and has been great. You know, I think they've done a great job just coming back to work each week, no matter what the situation, and working hard. And to me, that's the core part of leadership, is that you're committed to the task, and I'm just super proud of those guys.
And one guy that me and Grant just talked about in the previous segment, Ben Gibbs, who won't be able to take the field today for the game against Incarnate Word, a torn ACL. You've called him one of the greatest Wildcats ever. Your thoughts on Ben's great career here as a Wildcat?
Well, I say that because, number one, he's been very productive on the field, and everybody knows that. He's a great tight end, but I say also he's a great person, and he's provided great leadership and great commitment. And I see what those guys do every day from January all the way to the next January. I see the commitment, and Ben's a guy that he's taken one class this fall to graduate. He could have graduated last spring and moved on with his life easily, but it was just that important to him to be with his teammates, to have a great season and to finish out. And so, the sacrifices and the commitments that he's made is what makes him great, and he's a great teammate. His influence transcends that locker room at a level of some of the great players, the Trey Simeons and some of those guys that have been here in the past, and just real appreciative of what he's brought.
He was contacted, I know, earlier this week by Clyde Gates, who found out about the injury, and I still have images last year of Clyde getting more excited about Ben scoring a touchdown than Clyde himself scoring. That a great bond with those guys. Mm-hmm. I can't help but think about the summer of 2007, Coach, and the confluence of talent that came to this campus. Mm-hmm. Bernard Scott was recruited to come here. His cousin Aston Whiteside on his dad's side came to be a redshirt. His brother Shalem Richardson came here. Edmund Gates came. And so you have Aston Whiteside, and then Darrell Richardson a couple of years later would come. That family from Vernon, Texas, it's amazing what that family has done in terms of impact on this ACU program. And you knew a lot of those guys and their parents and uncles.
Yeah. I grew up with Bernard's and Darrell's dad, and Ashton's family knew them. His mom is Darrell's sister, and just known that family for a long time, and real glad to see those guys having success, man. Yeah. It's satisfying to see that when they're from your hometown. It's satisfying to see guys succeed anywhere, but it's neat to know their families and see how they've been able to impact this program.
Clyde Gates got his degree last year. Aston will get his next May. A great accomplishment on the field and off for that family. Coach, play well today against Incarnate Word. It's a 1 o'clock kickoff, 12:30 pregame on local radio and online on Mix 92.5 FM here in Abilene. For the coach and for Austin, I'm Grant Boone. Thanks for watching the Chris Thomsen Show. We'll see you next week.